Well, welcome for the listeners. Welcome to the Organizational Maneuverability Radio Show, and I'm host, Executive Coach Randy Swaim. Honored to have those that are listening, and I must say that today I'm very honored to have on my show as a guest Dr. Justin Kennedy. He and I have been good friends and colleagues for a number of years, and most people I brought on the show that I'm a certified neuroplastician. Well, that's with his organization and everything. But as you know, one of the three central things that we bring with this is a neuroscience and aspects that play out with leadership and things like that. So I'll tell you what, before we get started, let me just kind of let Justin take a minute or so and introduce himself. Justin, it's an honor to have you on today.
Thank you so much, Randy. It's a blessing to be on your show. We've known each other for longer than we should admit to give our age away, but it's really
I don't
cool
want to admit that I'm that age, right?
Exactly. Let's just keep moving. But your work is so leading edge, and I love the way that we have maintained our reading and our academic research into neuroscience together. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation today.
Cool. Well, anything you want to say about just introducing your journey, or is there anything that stands out that got you into this, that made this your real focus?
Well, I mean, let me give the short version of a
Sure,
long
you
story,
bet.
but
You bet.
you can quiz me into it.
Okay.
The journey that I got into neuroscience was the wrong side of the table. I ended up in a road accident, ended up in a coma, having
wow.
having a subdural hemorrhage, which basically means your brain was bleeding,
Mm-hmm.
and my brain bled a lot. And after I was recovering from the coma, getting back on my feet was a real big deal. I had to learn how to walk and talk and think and also control my emotions again. And as I got better and better at getting back on my feet, I noticed how my emotions were really difficult to control, from being in emotional states of depression or
Mm-hmm.
anger or just confusion. And I started thinking, what's going on with my brain that I can control. So the long story short is that I got really excited about this. It turned into a PhD program, graduated, got offered opportunity to become faculty. So now I work with various universities as an adjunct faculty in organizational neuroscience, which you know a lot about, Randy.
Yes.
So that's on Australia, also here in Switzerland, also in the US and in the UK. And I also spend more of my time at the moment building the discipline of the neuroplastician within the NPN Hub, which is an environment you know very well from your role as a fellow in the Institute of Organizational Neuroscience. So my focus is right now is to build leaders as neuroplasticians. So this is something very exciting, and I'm really interested to speak about the neuroscience of leadership and the practice of being an expert in the academic art of applied neuroscience.
Cool. Well, I tell you what, you have my compliments, and I think part of that journey I never knew about, and I mean, you have my total compliments, even above for that, because it's
Thank you.
that's your journey has a tendency to kind of develop things in you sometimes, and so but yeah, you have my compliments on just your journey, as well as the expertise that I know you have and what we've been working together on and stuff.
Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you what, let me just invite you to kind of do this when you talk about neuroscience. And of course, it's something that we both are passionate about. Um, as you look at perhaps some of the students that you've taught, as you look at perhaps leaders that you've taught or mentored, or that kind of thing, what are some of the big things that in your vision there stand out to um, uh, some of the people stand out to you that make you go, okay, this perhaps needs to be improved? Because I know we're working on the neuroplastician thing, and
Yeah.
so I'll let you share for a few minutes just some of the things that stand out to you that maybe even drove why you started this. And I'm with you every
Mm.
step of the way on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think an interesting place to start is with a conversation with Marshall Goldsmith. We both did his certification, and so I'm in Dubai, and I hear that he's speaking at a conference. So I speak to the organizers and I say, "Can I meet with Marshall? I'm really interested. He's such a big name in
Hmm.
coaching. Everybody knows Marshall Goldsmith if they know coaching." And
Yeah,
they said,
I
"Well,
think he's number one in the world right now. So
yeah, he is. Anyway, he's
yeah,
he's a household name in the coaching industry."
yeah, yeah.
And they said, "Well, we can't introduce you to him at the conference because he's busy from moment arrived to leaving." So I said to the organizer, "Well, when he's leaving, can I travel in the taxi with him to the airport?"
Hmm.
And they said, "Oh, it's a very interesting idea, but we'll ask him." And he's a really friendly guy. I said, "Yeah,
Yep,
sure. Better than
yep.
sitting alone staring at the seat." So I got to meet him in a taxi, and after the conference, he he was so humble and so motivated. And the reason I wanted to speak to him, Randy, because I wanted to write a book called Brain Triggers, which
Hmm.
I said would be a great follow-on to his book Triggers.
Hmm.
And and he said to me, "Don't write a sequel to my book. Write your own book."
Yeah,
And that led into me writing the book Brain Reboot. And the
and just
mentoring around that was
while you're
so.
here, I'll hold this up
Oh, thank you,
because
thank you.
this is the book.
Well,
Cool.
that's very cool. Tell all the people on your channel that they can have access to a copy at no cost. So
Cool, cool.
um, that's I'm happy to share that with your listeners, Randy.
Okay,
So
cool, cool.
so the the work that I've done since the book has been working with PhD students and candidates and looking at what is going on in the leader's brain as they are developing their expertise, developing their teams, building psychological safety, building performance. And as you know, in your environment, Randy, it's kind of 90% emotional.
Hmm.
People get in their own way, and
They do.
helping them understand how the brain works helps them understand the machinery that influences the mind. And those conversations are so interesting and so mutually beneficial to work with leaders.
It's interesting with what you said there, Doc, because you'd be surprised at how many times I've heard a pilot instructor say, "Well, it should have been this way." Well, guess what? In the real world, it wasn't, kind of thing. And like you said, understanding how that thinking needs to kind of shift a little bit, particularly when you're dealing with leaders, is a huge factor that a lot of people don't understand. And you remember in the recording we did, well, not you and I, but I did up in New York about a year ago,
Yes.
and one of the things that they were asking me is about the aspects of neuroscience and leadership. And one of the things that I said is, in your team or in your leadership, if you're constantly going back to the rote academic answers, you're not getting the job done. And there's an aspect about it where you got to bring, not only do that in yourself as you're suggesting, correctly so, but you got to kind of build that in your team too. And it's just
Mm,
something that's very interesting with that.
it is very interesting indeed.
Yeah. And so let me ask you this: when you look at neuroscience and in our all of our colleagues on NPN Hub and ION and all that, when you look around some of the insights that you have and some of what they have, what are some of the things that are probably the most, I guess, dysfunctional or the least satisfactory in what they're doing? How does that, as you look forward in people that you work with and mentor and coach and teach in universities and such, what are some of the things that they need to be d- doing very different?
In the PhD coaching space, the thing that people do mostly incorrectly is they get lost in the literature review and they don't spend enough time looking at their own work.
Hmm.
So I help practitioners become pracademics. And I say being a pracademic is understanding the professional application.
Hmm.
The work that I do is with coaches and educators and practitioners. And I'm saying, let's get into the reads
Hmm.
around the relevance of your work. And in the academic space, it's about making sure that we're getting pracademic relevance, professional, practical, useful application. So with the Institute of Organizational Neuroscience, that has become a a mantra, I suppose. And
Hmm.
as you know, in that fellowship, Andy, we have some very rich conversations. And one of them being, well, we're all in the game of neuroplasticity. Let's all become neuroplasticians. And with the development of the Institute, we've seen the birth of the neuroplastician discipline. So
Hmm.
people who want to know more about that can go to npnhub.com, and we are hosting events. We're having roundtables with really cool people. Paul Zak is on next week, I think, and Michael Merzenich was also involved. So there's some really big names. And the most important thing, I think, Randy, is that people need to remember to stay practitioners. As a
Hmm.
leader, there is an art to that, and it's
Hmm.
very important for people to remember that in this space we're all learning together as practitioners.
Hmm. Hmm. You know, and it's interesting. I'll just kind of share this with you because it's very aligned with
Mhm.
exactly what you're talking about. But yesterday, well, not yesterday, the day before yesterday, I was teaching ground school, recurrent ground school,
Okay.
the three very experienced jet pilots. And when I say very experienced, I'm saying two of them are retired military and are flying for the Federal Aviation Administration, and one of them had a 35-year career with American Airlines and
Wow.
is now flying, for an operator and stuff like that. And so they're not people that are just new. They're very experienced people. But because I bring a neuroplastician mindset to how I teach and develop and engage other people, one of them, the guy that was retired, he was probably the older one and the one that had the most experience, came up to me on a break. He said, "Randy, I got to share something with you." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "I so appreciate the different approach you take." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, because you don't just bring the numbers and stuff." He said, "You actually bring stuff that makes you understand application and operational stuff and all of that." He said that in my career that has not been obvious, kind of thing in training that I've gotten. He said, "That's very different." And I just looked at him. I said, "Well, thank you for saying that." And I said, "I do bring a different approach with my Marshall Goldsmith leadership and my
Right.
neuroscience expertise and understanding how all that works and everything." I said, "I do bring it a little bit differently, and it's much more of an operational perspective." And and one of the things that's very aligned, kind of what you're talking about, and I'll let you continue with that here in a second. But one of the things that I tell people, particularly when you're dealing with pilots, are you developing the pilots in such a way that when they get out there and the least expected thing comes on scene, they can make the right decisions to enhance safety and minimize risk? And that's true with any leaders in any realm. So I found what you're saying there is key. So I'll let you take it again a little bit, but some very good insights with that.
Yeah, I agree completely, Randy. It's when things don't work out that you need to have an elegance of knowing how to lead the situation and get back on track.
Yeah. And you know what? It's interesting because one of the things, and I think you're kind of mentioning this with the neuroscience aspect, uh, people have to get a real sense, and the real sense and understanding of how their brain is working happens for a few months prior to when they really need it. It
Mm,
doesn't always happen right there. And one of the things is, do you understand how your brain is maybe clicking to this expectation thing over here,
right.
or is it really bringing in the actual factors and the actual awareness and seeing the actual risk and what you need to be doing about that? And when you're talking about leaders, when you're coaching leaders or developing your team as a leader, you have to understand how you get that process going on the road so that when that happens down the road, they already have the insights and they see, oh yeah, kind of thing, and can make that uh, decision. It's very key when you're talking about really um, bringing this neuroscience awareness and how and what ways are your brain getting in the way, and what do you need to
Mm.
do different. Are you aware of over the last month or so how your brain is making assumptions or whatever, as opposed to really being able to do it. And so it's, the stuff that you bring with the neuroscience is key, I think. And I just kind of throw it back to you there for a second.
Yeah, I mean, people forget that their brain does stuff without them being involved. So
Mm-hmm.
it's back to Descartes. The mind is influenced by the body, the brain being part of the body, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
what happens is there is these floods of neurotransmitters that influence how our mind shows up.
Yeah.
So if we having poor levels of sleep quality, adenosine causes us to have that fatigue. It's a inhibitory neurotransmitter, and then we notice that we can't think straight with our adenosine levels being out of sync. If
Mm-hmm.
we're noticing that the excitatory hormone of acetylcholine is not functioning as a neurotransmitter, we can notice there's forgetfulness, uncertainty. We feel
Mm-hmm.
disorientated. So, having a way to build a focus in focusing
Mm-hmm.
becomes part of the job. And as a neuroplastician, this is the task: helping their clients notice how their brain shows up and
Mm-hmm.
notice how they can have a system that controls how they influence their behavior by understanding how the neurotransmitters work. So it can get very technical, Randy,
Mm-hmm.
but the goal is to keep it pretty simple. We want people, leaders, to know that the brain is going to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to get tired. It's going to get hungry. It's going to get
Yeah.
angry. And these are normal things that normal brains do. The
Mm-hmm.
brain is designed as a fear factory. Fear will
Yeah.
happen without you planning to do them out of it, but it's what you do with that rise of stress. What happens when your cortisol levels get too high from
Mm-hmm.
chronic stress? Do you just blame the environment, or are you looking at what you can do differently by noticing there is this flood of dis-ease that can
Mm-hmm.
cause disease like
Mm-hmm.
sleep hygiene or heart disease? So what can you do? And as a leader of yourself, you can say, okay, this is what my brain is doing under these circumstances. The brain body system is working against me, or it's
Yeah.
working for me. And what can I do to train my brain to change my mind, to heal my heart so that I can lead right from the start. So
and develop my team to do that too.
exactly.
Yeah.
And, teams won't function unless they have an environment that is neurologically safe. As
Hmm.
Kerry Allen, as you know so well, Randy,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
doing her research around neuropsychological safety.
Hmm.
And you need to get the brain into a safe space. You need to turn off the fear. You need to build an environment where people can make mistakes, where people can learn, where
Hmm.
people can challenge. Because if you don't do that, production, performance, efficacy doesn't really happen. So the leader needs to know how to lead brains out of fear into safety so that they can do the work without having to deal with all this emotional noise.
You know,
That's
and
the goal.
and if you don't mind me saying so, because I think you're dead right on all of that, no two ways about it. But when you talk about the leader trying to lead your team out of those fear factors and all that kind of stuff, one of the things, and you've heard me use this term before, but one of the things that people will do, as you know, the dopamine, is what our brain releases to make us feel rewarded. And so many
Right.
people become so dependent on that. And it's what I call the dopamine fix, kind of thing, that people, when you're talking about uh, easing away from the fear, it's almost like people sometimes will just immediately want to just jump in the safe space and over here in the dopamine fix, and assume that that's rewarded, even though it shouldn't be, kind of thing. And when you're talking about what you're talking about as a leader, it's leading your people away. And so, in a military aspect, when you're in combat, can you do your job in combat and still have confidence, still have a degree of confidence where you're not, doing this kind of thing, but you can get the job done. And you know
Yeah.
what? It's not just about feeling good about it, but it's about leading your team, as you correctly said, where you can ease away from that fear in such a way that
Mm.
it is relevant for this situation, for the people that are involved, for what we're trying to accomplish. And yet it doesn't just go over into this safe zone where people just shut everything off, kind
Yeah,
of
I
thing.
mean, you can get a dopamine reward by simply avoiding a problem. I mean,
Hmm.
if the leader isn't building a safe place, you will get a reward by avoiding that
Yeah.
leader. So
Yeah.
that's when you get rewarded with a dopamine hit
Yeah.
in, inappropriately, because you don't
Right.
want people to be rewarded neurologically by avoiding you as a leader. You want them to
That's
be
right.
neurologically rewarded for contributing, for developing products or projects. So the dopamine pathway doesn't care how it gets the fix of dopamine.
That's right.
It doesn't mind if it's from playing games or hanging out on social media. It doesn't matter if it's from alcohol. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
if it's from any other vice. As long as it gets to have that dopamine drip going on. And as neuroplasticians, we want to help people notice that they can do things that get their dopamine differently or more healthily or more effectively. Because as you know, we can overdose on dopamine. And
Hmm.
then we need a detox because we're getting too much dopamine from our PlayStation or too
Hmm.
much dopamine from avoiding our boss. Or, you get the picture.
And it's interesting because if you look at some of the newer generations, and by that I mean the children,
Right,
a
right.
lot across societies right now, they're becoming so much into this
Mm,
that they're in there playing games, but they're not out envisioning what they want to accomplish in their life. They're not out really becoming anything. They
mm,
just, and I've seen several reports on that where it's just like you said, they're just getting the dopamine fix just from getting on their game
mm.
and phone and playing a game on an iPad or something, as
Yeah,
opposed to catching a vision of what they really want to accomplish in their life. What do I really want to become? What do I want to do? Kind of thing.
yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
one other aspect of what you're talking about.
It's a good question about environment.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you are, under 30, you come from an environment where you've really been exposed to opulence
Mm-hmm.
in many senses of the word. So your hunger lust to be successful, like we had in the 80s and even earlier, we
Mm-hmm.
really had to work a lot harder to get successful. And
Mm-hmm.
now there's not that much of a need. So the question is, what can we do to make the environment more attractive for the younger generation to be
Mm-hmm.
interested in chasing the right kind of goals?
There you
It's
go.
easy. It's easy to play on your phone. It's much
Yeah.
more difficult to read a book, for
Yeah.
example. So, but that happens across generations. I know
Yeah.
my grandmother was an avid reader, but now she's found TikTok, and her books don't get read so much.
Yeah.
So the environment has made her a TikToker rather than a reader. So
Yeah.
that's happening to the next generation even before they knew that reading was an option.
Yeah.
So where does the problem start? Does it start with the individual? Let's motivate them. Well, it's not going to really happen because it's much easier to play on my phone,
Yeah.
and without the environment being more facilitatory
Yeah.
in getting that change, it's very unlikely it's going to happen. So
Yeah.
maybe artificial intelligence will save the day and will do all our work, and we can all sit around on TikTok all day. But probably
Yeah.
not in our
Yeah.
lifetime.
Probably not.
But you
Probably
never
not.
know. But we can hope for
When
it.
a automation doesn't exactly work correctly, we kind of go,
Yeah.
huh? What? Kind of thing. So
Exactly. I mean, even getting onto this chat room today for your channel, I got a bit lost, and
yeah.
it's really nice that we got it to work, but it's going to take some time for things to be automated.
Yeah.
But what I'm seeing, Randy, is a point is that people are lonely, and
I think that's a good way to say it.
people are lonely. People don't get that oxytocin dosing
We don't get that
from
connection.
from social media, you know. But you look at our relationship. We haven't seen each other for years, but we spend a lot of time in rich conversation. We
Mm-hmm.
spend a lot of time connecting. So you
Yep.
don't have to smell the other person's deodorant. You can still have rich conversation,
Yep.
but it has to be in real time. You can't send me a WhatsApp message.
Yeah.
You need to have a message to have a conversation,
Yeah.
because without that, we're going to really get further and further lost down the rabbit hole. So I got
And
something in
that's a
my
good
eye.
point.
I got something in my eye. Sorry, Randy, carry
Oh,
on.
that's good. Well, I know we're kind of getting close on time here and stuff, but but the point that you brought out is a really critical, important point, because when you understand this neuroscience aspect, particularly as it relates to leadership, it's a lot bigger than just simple things that people think about. It's kind
Mm,
of across society in many ways. And you know what?
exactly.
As a leader, how are you going to lead your team in such a way where maybe in the first 10 years of their life or career, they didn't even think about it, but you can start helping them envision what's really going to make them feel rewarded, and
Exactly.
what their
Exactly.
vision really is,
Yeah.
and all of these are part of true leadership, and so it
And
really
yeah,
is.
I mean, true leadership starts, in my opinion, way back. It starts
Yeah.
back in the bedroom. What time do you go to bed? It
Yeah.
starts at the table. What are you eating? It
Hmm.
starts. Are you exercising? Are you learning how to regulate your own activity, your
Yeah.
own mental challenging? Are you able to apply that into your team,
Yeah.
into your family, into your conversation space? And are you building rich dialogue?
Yeah, there you go.
Because I believe the brain has two functions. One is to avoid fear, and the
Hmm.
other one is to make friends.
Here.
And having you as a friend, Randy, is a real honor. And
And I'm honored to have you, buddy. I really am. And and a good point. I wouldn't. I'd so appreciate you and Jordana and stuff, and all that you bring. And I know that it's getting close to the our time for this, but some good insights in terms of the brain and how leaders have to be aware of that, and how that applies, and how they're going to change their leadership a little bit. But let me ask you this: it's always an honor to be on here for you. Let me just give you a second, and Justin, it's if you can just give a minute or something, and if there's people that are listening that would like to contact you, let them know how to get in touch with you.
So if you want to get in touch with me, work through my agent, Randy.
We can do that too. We can do that too.
That's so funny. I mean, people can find me on professorkennedy.com or on LinkedIn or on the YouTube channel. But, come and join us at the npnhub.com. We're a community. We're building a tribe of practitioners in neuroplasticity. And, come and hang out. We're a fun bunch. And I'm looking forward to our next conversation, Randy.
Sounds good. Well, listen, I know it's toward the end here. I know you got some other things to do, but Justin, it's been an honor. It's always an honor to be connected with you.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you being here and bringing what you brought today. And we'll look forward to talking again.
You're the best, Randy. Thanks so much for the time.
Take care now, buddy.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.